Pass the damn salt. Chapter 30. Meet his family, Rachel and Riley. Part 8. And everybody, this is Rachel, said Riley. Hello everyone, said Rachel. Chorus of hellos, and after a slight pause, so hey sis, how's it going? Said his brother. Pretty good, said his sister. And where is little Reggie? Said his brother. Evan? Said Riley. Hey, I just want to know, where is the president-elect of the future arsonist of America? Said Evan, his brother. Cute. He's with his father this weekend, said his sister. I was hoping to practice my building evacuation skills, said Evan, the brother. Oh, well, you could still do that, like right now, said his sister. But it wouldn't be the same thing without the sense of overwhelming panic caused by billowing, binding smoke, said Evan, his brother. Not to mention the searing heat, said his dad. That a real arson-induced fire can cause, said Evan, the brother. Love you too, asshole, said his sister. Oh, you know, you only tease the ones you love, said Evan, the brother. Oh, geez, guys, come on, said Riley. So, how is his special program coming, dear? Said his mom. Yeah, has he learned how to purchase accelerants without getting caught? Said Evan, the brother. Or learned, at least, not to use a credit card when doing so, said his dad. Cash is indeed king on the fringes of the economy, said Evan, his brother. You would think they would teach kids stuff like credit card tracing in schools these days, said his dad. It's the demise of the liberal arts education. If it's not on the test, they don't teach it, said Evan, his brother. Well, hopefully that is the type of thing they include in his special program, said his mom. It is true. All critical thinking skills are going by the wayside, said his dad. You know, maybe those seemingly incompetent and ill-informed educrats actually know what they are doing after all, said Evan the brother. How do you mean? Said his dad. Well, if they never teach any critical thinking skills, that means they will be just sorry as criminals as they are as students. Like if they never take a class in basic logic, said Evan the brother. Or chemistry. Chemistry is important in arson and has a critical thinking component, said his dad. Okay, Dad, but my point is that if they never learn any critical thinking skills, they will always make the same sorry ass mistake every time they do a crime and get caught, which means their sorry ass plan will never work, said Evan the brother. Is sorry ass your vocabulary phrase of the day? If so, it so becomes you and your sorry ass, said his sister. Did I mention I always hated chemistry? My solution was always a different color than everyone else's, so I would try adding different chemicals fairly randomly, so at least my test tube was the same color as everyone else's. That strategy never seemed to work very well, but it passed the time nicely in the lab, said Riley. Now, children, hush. You know, honey, we all think that Reggie is a tremendously clever little boy, but if he is going to be a criminal, said his mom, and with a father like that, that is pretty much a given, said his dad. Now hush, dear. Be nice. We really ought to make sure that little Reggie is a good one and doesn't get caught quite so often, said Evan the brother. Now, Mom, be fair. Little Reggie can certainly learn lots when he is a guest of the county or state. Which one is it again, Elizabeth? Said Evan the brother. Oh, just bite me. Juveniles go to county, said his sister. But there at county or state, he is learning from the failures, the ones who have been caught. My grandson should learn from the very best, not the failures, said his mom. I know, Mother. We're working on that, says his sister. You know we are just kidding, dear. We love our dear little Reggie to pieces. It's just this whole arson thing has happened so suddenly, said his mom. And already he is ranked number 3 on the juniors, seniors, Arson America as determined by the editors of AA, said Evan, his brother. AA, said his dad. Arsonist America, said Evan, the brother. Well, nice one. It certainly is nice they have different age classifications so that he doesn't have to compete against arsonists of a different age, said his dad. Okay, categories. First, there are little sparks. Those are the little guys. Laughter, said Evan, his brother. Then there are flare-ups. Laughter, said his dad. Then there are whooshers. Laughter, said Mom. Then juniors. Laughter. Bravo, our Reggie, said Evan, the brother. And finally, seniors, where they start with a clean slate, said his dad. And then there are pros, and the parents are not legally liable anymore, said Evan, the brother. But the sponsorships carry over, right? From juniors to seniors, said his dad. Oh, yes, said Evan, his brother. Good thing he has always been such a good-looking boy. Laughter, said his mom. Of course, that might also be a good thing in prison, too. Laughter, said Evan, the brother. Or not, said his dad. Or not. Not that there is anything wrong with that, mind you, if it is mutual, said Evan, the brother. Yeah, but no matter how good looking, after a while, you simply got to produce, said his dad. Or destroy, as the case may be, said Evan, the brother. Oh, I don't know. There was that Russian blonde tennis player, very good looking, never won anything, but she made a ton of money. Not that we think adorable Reggie is just a pretty face, honey. We all know if he just applied himself, he could be the best junior arsonist ever, said his mom. And number 3 is not so bad, said Evan, his brother. Quite an accomplishment, actually, considering the competition. Oh yes, there was that little cutie down in Oxford, Mississippi. I'm so glad they caught her and eliminated her from top 10 consideration, said Evan, the brother. Yeah, with her on the loose, poor little Reggie would have not been in the medal round at all, said his dad. Too bad she tried to burn down a white church, said Evan, the brother. Caught her in what, 20 minutes, said his dad. If that, said Evan, the brother. What are they teaching in public schools in Mississippi? Said his mom. Obviously, not local history, said Evan, the brother. Maybe all the good black ones were already taken. Any chance for number 2 for Reggie? Said Evan, the brother. No, both number 1 and number 2 are currently at large and racking up huge damage points, said his dad. Your father is on the internet all the time, dear, said Mom. Yeah, I have bookmarked all the sites. ArsonAmerican.com has the most up-to-the-minute data and polls, but BurnitCrisp.org has the best analysis, said Dad. What about AccelerateAway.net, said Evan, the brother. Oh, please. Way too many pop-ups, and it takes forever to load. And once you get there, there's the same tired, old content every time, said Dad. It's that atrocious opening graphic that takes forever to load, said his mom. And there is no way to bypass it, said Dad. And half the times it crashes the computer, said his mom. So we have to reboot, said his dad. You know, Dad, I keep telling you to get DSL, said Riley. Yeah, Dad, you might want to try cable or something, said Evan, his brother. What do you think about bundling it all with cable? There was an article in the paper last Sunday which seemed to suggest it was a pretty good idea, said his dad. Well, I know a lot of people at work who had trouble hooking up to DSL through their phone lines at home, said Riley. Oh, fine. My kid gets into a little trouble and you can gleefully rip into him. But when it's time to talk serious about something, it's the internet, said his sister. Now, dear, we were talking about little Reggie. You know, dear, if you can't find a good apprenticeship program, and if he wants a career in crime, which he obviously does, why don't you try something that is a little less legally entangling for you, said his mom. I am glad you are so concerned. What were you thinking of? Said his sister. Well, your mother and I have been looking into it, and we were thinking maybe something more on the order of counterfeiting, said his dad. Yes, dear, it's simply brilliant. You know, little Reggie has always been so good with his hands, said his mom. And the same thrill he gets from lighting fires, he could get from passing bad bills, said his dad. And by the time he acquires the skills necessary to be a good counterfeiter, we will not be liable for any damages he incurs, said his mom. It still annoys me that the county makes a mistake or someone takes a bribe and they put a subdivision right in the natural historic fire tunnel, and just because our little Reggie is the first to send a fire up a canyon where a fire has always gone after they built the subdivision, well, suddenly we might be responsible for the whole thing. The whole thing. How fair is that? I ask you, said his dad. Now, honey, we don't need to hear that rant again, said his mom. Careful, Dad, you don't want to become one of those bus people, said Riley. Yeah, like the guy who wears his sneakers draped around his neck, who is an opera Nazi, says Evan the brother. Or the master chef with a fake French accent, said his sister. But my point is, they shouldn't have built there in the first place. It was just that Reggie's fire was the first one to potentially take it out, said his dad. Oh, I know it. It was just plain old bad luck. That's all, said his mom. But at least he was first at something, and it really did help his standing this year, said Evan the brother. Oh yes, that it certainly did. No complaints there. You know, sis, that is not a bad idea, actually. There will always be a market for high-end printing and engraving, so there might actually be a legitimate job that he could ostensibly be engaged with, said Evan the brother. Well, thanks for all that, guys, but, said his sister, I know his father probably has his heart set on arsonist for little Reggie, said his mom. And for him and his family, arsonist is a major step up from thug, said his dad. And a father should always want more and better for his son. But honey, counterfeiter sounds so much better than arsonist, and we were hoping for just a little more for our first grandson. Not that there's anything wrong with arsonist, if that is what he wants to be. Now, we don't want to insist on a respectable field of white-collar crime if he really doesn't have the aptitude or appetite for it, but counterfeiting really does seem to be the best path for him at this point, said Dad. And if you need any money for any special schooling, said Mom, or a good mentoring program, said his dad, you know your father and I would be more than willing to help out in that way, in any way we can. Okay, everyone, enough about our dear, precious Reggie. After all, it was just one rather small trash can, said Mom. Very small, actually, said Evan, the brother. More like a trash canette, really, said Dad. Petimissimo trash canette, said Riley. Now hush, the three of you. Be nice, said Mom. Oh, okay, Mom. Does that mean I can't get Sis an arson cam for Christmas? Said Evan, the brother. Now, you, whatever your name is, you hush, said Mom. Pinky, said Riley. Petronius, said Elizabeth, the sister. Thanks, guys, said Evan, the brother. Yes, you know we love you, Pumpkin, said Dad. And we love your son, said Mom. And what's his name, Mom? Said Evan, the brother. Reggie, dear, why did you ask? Said Mom. Just checking, said Evan, the brother. And what about Dwayne? Said Elizabeth, the sister. His father, said Evan, the brother. Of course I meant his father, you idiot, said Elizabeth, the sister. Just checking, said Evan, the brother. Just making sure, said Riley. Wouldn't want to make any mistakes on that question, said Dad. No sirree, Bob. No mistakes, said Evan, the brother. Just hoping that maybe, ... said Dad. Just maybe, said Evan, the brother. There might be someone new in your life named Dwayne, said Dad. Mother, make them stop, said Elizabeth, the sister. Sorry, said Riley. Love you, sis, said Evan, the brother. And of course, we love your, said Mom. Here's the hint. He was the other person at my wedding, but of a different gender, said Elizabeth. Yes, your husband, said Mom. Dwayne, his name is Dwayne, said Riley. Dwayne Scumbag Dirtball, said Evan, the brother. Of course, we all love Dwayne here, my sweet little girl, said Mom. Well, let's not go overboard. How about despise and tolerate, said his dad. Yeah, despise and tolerate sounds about right, said Evan, the brother. Works for me, actually, said Riley. Now the three of you, hush. What must our new guest be thinking? Said Mom. Oh, I am glad just to be a fly on the wall here, said Rachel. Well, welcome to our home. It is a pleasure to meet you, said Mom. Yes, we were just joshing Elizabeth about Reggie here. If we don't kid you, it means we don't love you. Don't you know? He really is a great kid, said Dad. Yeah, I'm sure he felt the love, Dad, said Elizabeth, the sister. Reggie is the first Johnson to have a criminal record in a couple of generations, at least. So that is a milestone that has to be celebrated as only we can, said Evan, the brother, with their patented witty banter and passive-aggressive sarcasm, said Elizabeth, the sister. So tell me, how did you two meet? Said Mom. Oh, Mom, no need to tell that story here, said Riley. Okay, kid, now it's your turn, said Elizabeth, the sister. No, it's okay, I don't mind. Well, we met at a party. It was kind of fun, actually. There was an empty space on the sofa next to me, and Riley just sorta introduced himself, and we just sorta talked, said Rachel. Riley talked, said Evan, the brother. It helped it was a pretty boring party, so I think I shined by comparison, said Riley. Way to go, the Rylester, talking the smooth talk at a party, said Evan, the brother. Very smooth. Well, there was also that way too intensive guy trying to play video games on the TV, said Rachel. Laughter. Talk about the most certain way to kill a party, said Evan, the brother. Now, Pinky, hush, I want to hear this, said Elizabeth, the sister. As I recall, he had trouble navigating past the swamp of Tamblador, said Rachel. Yes, and it seemed that shouting at the top of your lungs, "Goddamn fuck, I can't believe this, god damn it," is not the way to make it past the cursed swamp of Tamblador, no matter how many times it was invoked or how loudly it was screamed, said Riley. Or meet a lot of new people at a party, said Rachel. Yeah, so he had curved out his own special space, said Riley, which got a lot larger after he threw the guacamole against the wall after being killed. Again, said Rachel. You know, after he left, he started playing basketball on the TV, and he actually got someone to play him, said Riley. Oh no, said Elizabeth, the sister. Oh yes, I don't think that happened to him all that often, and he seemed a little plussed by the prospect, said Riley. Plussed, said Rachel. It's a family word, opposite of nonplussed, said Elizabeth, the sister. You know, shouting, "Goddamn fuck, I can't believe this, god damn it," doesn't make the ball go in the basket any more than it gets you across the treacherous swamp of Templador. Imagine that, said Elizabeth, the sister. I think he went home alone, said Riley. Well, so did you, said Rachel. But I had the number of the prettiest lady there, said Riley. And you actually called me up, said Rachel. Well, you knew the words to both girls talk and cruel to be kind, said Riley. Well, you were able to make it Hegel talk, said Rachel. You did, Pro. Excellent, said Evan, the brother. Well, we both did, actually, and I am pretty certain anyone else could have done the same, said Riley. Trust me, no, they couldn't, said Rachel. Well, thank you, sweetie. So, anyways, I spun my word-laden charm thick and heavy and found someone who could give as well as receive, and so here she is, meeting all of you on a day you are all in fine form, said Riley. Well, if that isn't the sweetest story, said Mom. It is indeed a pleasure to meet you, Rachel. Hey, I'm starving. Let's eat, said Evan, the brother. End of chapter 30. Pass the damn salt. Meet his family, Rachel and Riley, Part 8. Pass the Damn Salt, Please is written by Dan McLaughlin and read by Dan McLaughlin.